Have you ever had a thought so convoluted that your nights were filled with less sleeping and more thinking? Well, for me, this thought is, can Jesus use the hollow purple if needed to? But what is the hollow purple and who's Jesus? Well, the hollow purple is the application of the limitless technique when the amplification blue and the reversal red are smashed together to create imaginary mass, which is the hollow purple. But what is the limitless technique? Well, the limitless technique is the technique used by Satoru Gojo from the animated verse Jujutsu Kaisen. And because I struggle to say that, we're going to call it JJK for short. But I'm going to assume if you clicked on the video that you've seen the show. And if not, there will be spoilers ahead. Warning now, for the anime only. You're not about to catch me reading about a fictional character. I'm sorry. So, we're more so going to be talking about the science of how Limitless works, and if Jesus' feats could show that he could somehow use the Limitless technique and or the hollow purple. So, how is the Limitless used? Well, Gojo has 4 ways he uses the Limitless technique. The first way is by manipulating infinity on an atomic level to create a force field around himself, which allows him to block all attacks that aren't subatomic. What is a subatomic particle? Pretty much just light. Anything not made of protons, neutrons, and electrons. But in the show, there are some cursed tools such as the inverted spear of heaven, which nullifies all active Jujutsu techniques, allowing the wielder to be able to hit Gojo. The Limitless technique also allows him to float by manipulating the infinity between him and the ground. This will be important later. But the boy Z, infinity, I'm lost. We'll think of infinity not as a force field, but something that slows down the momentum of an object so much that it looks like it's not moving. Essentially, the acceleration is decreased by dividing it in half an infinite amount of times. Well, now that you understand that, let's move on to the amplification blue. Blue is basically the power to attract. Now, it's theorized that because Gojo can make multiple points to attract things, as seen in this scene here, he can bring space to him, therefore teleporting or at least upping his movement speed a sizable amount. It can also be used as a black hole, attracting everything nearby to it, as seen in this scene. Blue, in the sense of the show, is the application of cursed energy into the Limitless technique. Now on to red, the reversal. Red is basically the power to repel, as seen in this scene here. And that's really it for red. It's kind of just a red ball of destruction. It also allows Gojo to heal, as explained to him before his second fight with Tojo.
I'm still alive and kicking! I gave up on counterattacking and poured all my focus into the reverse curse technique. Negative energy against itself to create positive energy. Could never do that till now!
Red is the application of positive energy. Now for purple, which is the reason I made this video. Purple, which is the amplification blue, and the reversal red, the application of negative energy against negative energy, which makes positive energy. But if hollow purple were to exist in the real world, then how? Well, scientifically, hollow purple is imaginary mass. It's not like Jesus ever created imaginary mass or came back from the dead or floated or anything like that. Editor note, I just realized I never mentioned how Gojo died and came back from the dead. Basically, in his first fight versus Tojo, he was stabbed through the head and was on the verge of death when he was able to heal himself by using red. Now, before we start talking about if Jesus can use the hollow purple, we're going to lay some parameters first. First of all, I'm aware that you watching this video may not be a believer, which is fine, to each his own. So if so, you're under the assumption that the Bible is false, then we're going to think of the New Testament as a second season to the anime in which the main character has just been birthed and has came to earth to set the world free of sin. And throughout his journey, he displays superhuman feats that defy science. And if you are a believer, just continue as usual. So to start, Jesus was able to walk on water in Matthew 14:25 and in John 6:16 through 21. Now, how does one walk on water? Well, one way you could is by creating an affinity between the water and your feet, like how Gojo floats. Now, because there is no way I can 100% say that Jesus could create an affinity between him and the water, what are the other possibilities? Well, Jesus isn't just less dense, and the only other possibility is flight. So how do you explain flight without using wings or propellers? So I think Jesus being able to use infinity makes sense. And because infinity is an application of the Limitless, this takes us one step closer to Jesus being able to use the hollow purple. Next, we're going to talk about when Gojo was killed the first time versus Tojo. Now, first of all, let me say this fight was absolutely beautiful, but that's neither here nor there. Gojo is stabbed in the head and gets his throat sliced through his body and just a lot of other injuries. When he returns to fight Tojo for the second time, he talks about how he was able to survive by multiplying his cursed energy against itself. And anyone with a high school diploma knows that a negative times a negative is a positive. So Gojo was able to regenerate himself by using positive energy. Now, there certainly wasn't a time Jesus did something similar, right? But there was. It's the reason we have Easter Sunday. He has risen. That much you most likely already knew. But how do you rise from the dead? Well, you can't, especially not in biblical times when the technology medics use today to preserve a life, less revive someone, wasn't available. So does this mean that Jesus can use the reversal application of Limitless technique? Well, not exactly. There's no science formula for someone rising from the dead, so we're gonna say yes, Jesus can use the reversal to heal. Now on to the Hollow Purple. Now when Gojo uses the Hollow Purple the first time, it's versus Tojo, and in their second fight he explains it as the amplification and the reversal smashed together to create imaginary mass. And this to me is the nail in the coffin, because Jesus was able to turn 5 loaves of bread and 2 small fish into enough food to feed 5,000 people. And yes, this is the loosest comparison I have, but again, there's no science to explain making something out of nothing, which is essentially what Jesus did. So can Jesus use the Hollow Purple after all this evidence I've supplied on how he can use the lower applications of Limitless all the way up to being able to create matter, which is loosely what happens when you use the Hollow Purple? I think so. If Jesus had to use the Hollow Purple, he could.
Infinities to create imaginary mass.
But what do you think? Also, I have to cover this before I end the video. About a month ago, I went off on Instagram on this dude for having an anime profile pic, and here I am making an anime video. And it wasn't even really the fact that he had an anime profile pic, it's just the fact that he picked 2016 Curry over 2019 Kawhi, and I wasn't having any of it. And if enough of you speak out up against this, then I'm gonna have to drop a full in-depth video about it. But otherwise, you have an amazing day, and peace out.